Those drawings are cash. The permits are cash. Those are as good as cash in the bank. And now you have a real asset that you can go to the bank and you can leverage that asset to get your construction funding. A lot of developers make this massive mistake. They make the mistake of thinking that you have to buy the land before you control the land and that you have to purchase it before you have your permits and entitlements done. Hey guys, my name's David. In this video, I want to talk about permits and entitlements because these terms get thrown around a lot by builders and developers, but very few people go into any level of specificity of what entitlements actually means. In case you don't know who I am, I've done over $30 million in ground up development. Last year in 2024, I did over $14 million in fix and flip with my brother. I've been in the real estate game for over 2 decades now. And I do these videos to educate you guys on how to transition from low margin fix and flip into high margin legacy projects like a ground up development, whether that's a spec home for your first deal or a 100-unit apartment complex. So what is the entitlement process? So the entitlement process essentially means getting approval to do what you want to do with the land. It also means you verifying the viability of the project, because the last thing you want to do is close on a piece of property and then realize that your business model doesn't work and you don't have an ability to fit as many units in or make the kind of profit that you thought you were going to be able to make. Step number 1 is tie up the land. So let's say you identify a piece of property that you want to make a move on. You're not going to just go and make a cash offer like you would in a fix and flip deal. What you're going to do is you're going to tie up the land either with an option or a contract that is contingent upon permits. The unique and interesting thing about land is there's not the level of buyers, or the pool isn't as big for land buyers as there is for housing inventory. So typically somebody who has a piece of property is going to be much more open to the idea of something creative, or at least waiting a little bit longer for their money. Let's say it's a lot in a subdivision and it's the last lot in an HOA that's been established for 15 years. Well, that landowner knows that it's been 15 years and no one's bought the property. And so if they're going to sell it, they're going to have to offer some terms to the buyer, which is you. So to tie up the land, you are either going to put an option on the property or you're going to put it under contract contingent on permits and entitlements. So following through with the example that we have, we're purchasing a lot, let's say it's $100,000 in an HOA, in a subdivision. So part of your entitlement process is going to be both verifying that you can build what you want to build with the local municipality and with the HOA because you're in a subdivision. Step number 2 is concept drawings. Carrying through with this example of a single family lot is you have to go into the HOA's bylaws and you're going to want to make sure that the type of square footage you want to build, let's say you want to build 3,000 square feet. First, you have to make sure that there's no restrictions on 3,000 square feet within the subdivision you're looking to build in. The declaration is the document that the HOA issues, which basically says, here's our rules. Minimum square footage, maximum square footage, type of siding, colors you can use, finishes that you can use, exterior structures, sheds, no sheds. It's going to have all those rules laid out. And so you find those rules, and those rules are going to give you good parameters of what you can build. So let's say you look through the declaration and you can build 3,000 square feet. Well, now you need a concept drawing. Now you need something on paper, because the next step is going to be getting a meeting with the municipality and starting your permitting process with the local HOA, or the HOA that you're inside of. So your goal at this point is to be into this project for as little money as possible. So on step 1, you tied up the land. Let's say you had to give a $5,000 earnest money deposit, refundable if you can't get your permits through with the city or the HOA. It's fully refundable. Let's say you gave yourself a 120-day window. The seller agreed to it. So now you've got $5,000 in entitlement, or I'm sorry, $5,000 in a earnest money deposit, and now you need to spend some money on an engineer. For the sake of this example, we're going to assume that you know roughly what type of house you want to build. You just don't have a full-blown set of construction drawings. But the engineer, what he's going to do is he's going to take the footprint of the building that you want to build, and he's going to make sure it fits on the particular lot that you're building on. Then the next thing you're going to do is you'll have you'll have to get your architect involved just so he can do elevation drawings and floor plan. Elevation drawing just means the front, the back, and the sides of the home. These are not construction documents, these are concept documents. And the floor plan means layout of the first floor, layout of the second floor, or however many floors you have in the home you're building. So elevation drawings, floor plan, not construction documents. There's a very big difference. And then your engineer is going to place the footprint on the lot. You do your meeting with the municipality, making sure that you're following all of their guidelines and regulations. Typically, they're very helpful. They have their rule books, which you can take the time to read the rule books. It's typically posted on the city website, but you don't have to. If you meet with them, they're going to tell you pretty quickly whether you're doing something wrong or doing something that you're not allowed to. Then you're going to go meet with the HOA. Same thing. The HOA, they don't really care about much other than, are you the correct square footage, and is the exterior of the home going to jive with the current? Is the exterior of the home going to fit into the community and not stick out like a sore thumb? Now you've done both of those meetings and things went well with the city, things went well with the HOA. They both gave you some commentary. This is where you're going to ramp up the spend on your purchase process. Now you have to pay for your full drawings with the architect and your full design with the engineer. Now there's very little engineering that goes into a single family lot. You have a little bit of stormwater management that you have to deal with. But outside of that, you're in a subdivision. This is a developed lot. There's going to be utilities. You're going to have electric, sewer, water. This is a current example. This is not a complicated project to build in an existing subdivision. So a little bit of engineering, a couple $1,000s to finish that. I'd say under $5,000. And then your architect is going to be $10,000. But at this point, you've already spoke to the powers that be. You talk to the HOA, you talk to the city. You know, if you follow the comments that they gave you in those preliminary meetings, that you will get permitted. So now you're doing your completed design, both architectural and engineering. And so your next step is permits. You're trying to get a permit, which is a paper that you can hang in the window that says, or wherever you can hang on site, that says you have the permission to build on this piece of property. Your architect is going to be communicating with the city. He's going to be taking their feedback. He's going to be integrating it into the house plan. And then you'll go to your HOA and you will get your final permits and permissions from the HOA and your permits from the municipality. The entitlements is simply the legal right, whereas the permits are the what of you're going to build. So this means, can I build? Entitlements is, can I build it? Permits is, what am I building? The building permits are going to consist of multiple things. You're going to have your building permit, and it's different in every city. So this is high level advice, but if you follow this, it'll work in any city. But different municipalities break up their permits differently. Some have permits for the entire structure, and some break up the structure plus a bunch of sub permits underneath it. Like you might get framing permit, mechanical permit, electrical permit, etc., foundation permit. But you're going to have the building itself, and then you're going to have utility permits, as well as grading permits and stormwater permits. Those are, on a single family home, are the primary permits: building, grading, stormwater, utilities. Those are the permits you'll need to build a single family home. A couple of points on speeding up this process is build relationships. Build relationships with the municipality and with the people who do the inspections, because the better the communication, the faster you get your permits. That's where the hang up is the architect's busy. He doesn't respond to the city. The city's busy. They're not responding to you or the architect. So the better your relationship is, the faster this process goes. It's like any working relationship. The more rapport you have, the more action you're going to get from the other side. The other point on making this process go faster is accuracy. So if you're a beginner in development, you're going to have to need to rely on your engineer and your architect. These are the guys that know what they're doing, and you need to make sure that they're submitting accurate packages when you go to get the final permits. You don't want sloppy work, because every time the city sends it back to you, it just means more time, because they're going to shove it back, and then in their mind, it's off their plate. And so even if you send it back to them the same day, they've already moved on. So when you make a submittal, make sure it's accurate. You're going to want to anticipate roadblocks. So in this HOA example, you don't want to propose something that you know the HOA is opposed to. Let's say, you want to do a purple roof, but there's no purple roofs in this community. Like, find the things that are going to gum up the process, either with the city or the HOA, and just avoid them altogether, or nip them in the bud. And I guess, and the last thing The last thing to speed this up is don't be afraid to spend a little money on the front end. Now, if you did your concepts and you got your preliminary comments back, you know this is moving in the right direction. So spend the money on the engineer, spend the money on the architect. The architect, it's not super important that it's a local person. It helps if the engineer is local because they can do a site visit. Not critical because they can do a lot of stuff off of topo. But once you have those concept drawings that you spend a couple grand on, let's say $2,000 for conceptual engineering, conceptual architecture, you know you're moving in the right direction. So spend the money, get the permits done, because here's the thing, is the value of the land is in the entitlements. That lot is $100,000 unpermitted. Once you permit that lot, depending on where it is, you know, the municipality it sits in, that lot becomes infinitely more valuable. In fact, you're going to use it as your collateral when you go to the bank, because now you have an entitled permitted lot. It may have been worth $100,000 as raw land, but it's potentially worth $200,000 or $250,000 now because you spent the money on entitlements, because you spent the time and you invested it. It's literally your sweat equity when you go to the bank. Those drawings are cash. The permits are cash. Those are as good as cash in the bank. And now you have a real asset that you can go to the bank and you can leverage that asset to get your construction funding. So you're creating the value in the land before you ever break ground. I hope this was helpful. This is a very high-level, simplistic overview of permitting because lots in a subdivision are not overly complicated. And so don't be intimidated by it because it's not overly complicated. If you need help with any of the stuff I talked about in this video, if you have way more complicated projects than this, if you have easier projects than this, and you want to see if I can help you out whatever you're working on, click the link in the description or in the comments, book a call, let's have a conversation, and maybe we can work together. In the meantime, please subscribe, like this video. Thank you for watching.